similar in the way of a Kelly-Beth Phoenix feud that lasted the equivalent of 3 pay-per-views. It started at SummerSlam, and it went from SummerSlam to Night of Champions, from Night of Champions to the final match between the two of them at Hell in a Cell just last year. So I'm hoping that that program will last the equivalent of a Beth Kelly match and go up until at least the December pay-per-view, and then we'll have a new program for the Divas Championship hopefully by December or January between Eve and somebody else. I'm hoping that Eve comes out on top of this program with Layla, because Layla's held the Divas Championship before on numerous different occasions, and she's held the Divas Championship over the last several months for a significant amount of time, I think. So it's time for a new Divas Champion. Of course, Layla held the championship since at least May of 2012, and she just recently lost the championship at Night of Champions, so that will give her about 4.5 to 5 months as your Divas Champion. So I hope they keep the championship on Eve by the time this program is finished up, and then Eve and Caitlyn will have a better feud than what they initially had just a few days ago, because Caitlyn solidified herself as the number 1 contender to the Divas Championship. I'm not saying that Caitlyn doesn't have the ability to be Divas Champion. She has pretty medicated power, I will give her that, and illustrating her power more often nowadays than she did several months back in WWE in the first few months of her run is a great move, because it's a quality that very few divas possess. Only divas like Beth Phoenix and people like Chyna who've come through the doors of WWE have exemplified medicated power. So having Caitlyn possess that quality was a great move, and I think that down the road she'll be a future Divas Champion. She is a diva that has a lot of qualities, but I think that it's too soon to have Caitlyn as your Divas Champion. And I think the program between Eve and Caitlyn was put forth to kind of tease the fact that Caitlyn was going to win the Divas Championship eventually, and kind of kayfabe the fact that Eve was going to win the Divas Championship. Eve just comes out of nowhere, wins the championship unexpectedly from Layla. I wasn't expecting it to happen. I was expecting Eve to win the Divas Championship at some point, just not this soon. Because she was being used as a put-over girl for Kelly, being used as a put-over girl for Beth Phoenix and other divas in the WWE. So seeing her as Divas Champion was kind of a shock to me. I wasn't really expecting it, but I'm enjoying seeing Eve as the Divas Champion. Of course, she's been there since 2007. She won the WWE.com Diva Search back in 2007 with a lot of competition. And, I think that WWE made a good decision by signing her and holding on to her for as long as they have. And nowadays, with divas, I find you're lucky if you get 6 years out of a diva. Kelly lasted 6 years. Other divas have lasted anywhere from 5 to 6 years. Trish Stratus had a 7-year run with WWE and was termed a legend after her 7th year, and she finished with the company in 2006 and won the Women's Championship for the final time. I'm not expecting Eve Torres to have a Trish Stratus storybook career, but I think that she's going to get at least 7 years out of her WWE run, or probably even more. She's probably going to be one of the longest running WWE divas in terms of a career in quite some time. We've seen the Bellas fired, we've seen Karma released, and the thing about it was, these were divas that you could have easily gotten 7 or 8 years out of if you would have promoted them right. And with the Bellas being unexpectedly fired on an edition of Raw during an R-Truth match, it was kind of inappropriate how WWE fired them and acknowledged their firing on public television, on a public forum. The way that you're promoting some of your beautiful divas is inaccurate, it's inappropriate, and I think that more divas should be pushed in the way of an Eve Torres, and I hope that by 2013 the WWE Divas division has got themselves out of this proverbial corner where the same 3 or 4 divas are carrying the show. If it's not Kelly, it's Eve Torres. If it's not Eve Torres, it was one of the Bella twins. It seemed consistently WWE were going around in a circle with giving the Divas Championship to the same 3 or 4 girls, having the same 3 or 4 challengers, and changing it up to make it seem a little bit different from what we had seen in past months. I didn't see anything different happening in the Divas division. I thought that when Kelly won the Divas Championship for the first few weeks, it was fun seeing her as Divas Champion. I didn't really enjoy seeing the feud between Kelly and the Bella Twins, and it going back and forth between the two of them bickering over the Divas Championship, and then eventually Kelly got into this program with Beth Phoenix. The program was good. The good thing about it was we saw pay-per-view title matches between Kelly and Beth, and I hope we see a lot of pay-per-view title matches for Eve Torres. I hope we see the matches between Eve and Layla on pay-per-view up until at least December or January, and by the time the program between Eve and Layla has finished, Eve has elevated herself to take on more experienced divas, and I hope they keep throwing her in the ring with experienced divas. I hope they don't keep putting her in the ring with inexperienced divas like we saw this past Monday on Raw, on the Raw Super Show, where she defended the championship against Caitlyn in one of the final matches of the 3-hour show. That match did not deserve to be featured in the third hour of Raw. There were a lot of great exchanges in the match, but it wasn't a Lita Trish Stratus match that was the Raw main event back in 2003, 2004. It wasn't a match that really put the Divas division on a notice or on a pedestal, and I didn't think it was worthy of being, second to the main event or in the third hour of Monday Night Raw. If it would have been a Lita Trish Stratus match, sure, I would have bought into that fact and I would have went for it. But the fact that that match was second to the main event, no. There were a lot of great exchanges and a lot of close calls for both Eve and Caitlyn in that match. But the fact that they were illustrating the idea of Caitlyn being injured kind of took away from how good the match could have potentially been. If Caitlyn wouldn't have had that injury exemplified as much as she did by the commentators and by Eve herself, who targeted the knee injury of Caitlyn in that match, I think the match would have been more effectively done if Caitlyn would have been at 100%. She would have been able to use more power maneuvers. She would have been able to counter some of the things that Eve was throwing at her. But I think they kind of pushed the idea of Caitlyn being injured, and that kind of took away from what could have been a 5-star match from a 5-star perspective. I didn't really enjoy that, so I'm glad now they're starting to promote Eve defending the championship at pay-per-views against talents like Layla. Here's the thing about Layla. Layla's been there since 2006. She's been there the same amount of time that Kelly's been there, and she's been feuding with a lot of WWE's top divas for a while now. She was an influential part of Lane Cool. She was a co-holder of both the Women's and Divas Championship with Michelle McCool. She learned a great deal of things from Michelle McCool, who has been there since at least 2004. She finished up her run with WWE back in 2011 at that year's Extreme Rules pay-per-view in her final match against the person she was mentoring, Layla. Layla's also been involved in programs with people like Beth Phoenix before in the past, who was one of the top divas in the industry and one of the best divas to come through the doors since Joni Lauer, portraying the character of Chyna. So she's got a lot of experience, and Eve Torres only has been there about 5 years, but she has just as much experience as a Layla. So I think that this idea is fantastic, and I hope they keep running with the idea. I hope that the WWE Divas division picks up and starts to get more interesting over the next several months. And I hope we don't see experienced divas clashing with inexperienced divas all the time, because that's wrong. You need to have experienced divas clashing with experienced divas, and you need to have the inexperienced divas, of course, clashing with inexperienced divas, because I think that having inexperienced divas clashing with experienced divas kind of makes experienced divas look like, dominant in the match, and inexperienced divas not looking that impressive. But if you have, an equal amount of talent going up against an equal amount of talent, you distribute it effectively, then it's a better way of promoting your Divas division. Right now, I think the TNA Knockouts division in TNA Wrestling is far more superior to WWE Divas division, because the TNA Knockouts illustrate a lot more qualities and illustrate them more effectively than the Divas division is right now. You have a lot of your WWE Divas involved in storylines right now, rather than illustrating what they can do inside of the ring, which is wrong. I think that all the divas should be competing as equally as much as the divas who are carrying the Divas division right now are, like Eve and Layla and Kelly was when she was a part of the WWE. I think that's a great way of doing it. Having half your divas involved in storylines and having half your divas competing inside of the ring representing the Divas division the way they are is the wrong way of doing it. Everybody needs to be competing an equal amount of time in the ring as the ones who are carrying the Divas division. That's what you're seeing in TNA's Knockouts division. You're seeing divas and women's wrestlers wrestling more, and I think that that's what the WWE Divas division needs to have. You need to have your divas wrestling more rather than being involved in storylines, while TNA Wrestling is always having their women wrestle. It's illustrating what the TNA Knockouts division is capable of doing, and they occasionally have their women involved in storylines, but not as much as WWE. So I want to see WWE's Divas division get away from promoting the idea of women in storylines and promote them more as wrestlers and what they can do inside of the ring. Now they've done that more so over the last 10 years. The Divas division has considerably changed over the last 10 years. Back in the mid-90s, you would see women more so involved in storylines than you would competing inside of the ring back in the era of Sunny and Sable. But I think the Divas division has considerably changed, and it seems as if WWE have gone from having women involved in storylines to creating a very diverse women's division, but they're going with the same 4 or 5 divas wrestling within that division and kind of bouncing the championship back and forth from one diva to another. If you notice, every diva on the WWE Divas roster has held the championship at least once in their career. It's not like a male perspective where occasionally someone is given an opportunity at the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and there are those wrestlers who never hold the championship once in their career. You take Chris Benoit. It took him 18 years to win the World Championship for the first time at WrestleMania 20. And there are those wrestlers who have never had the chance to hold a major championship. But in the Divas division, every diva has held the championship at least once. And is that really an effective way of promoting your Divas division? Yes, it's distributed fairly because every diva is given an equal opportunity, with some divas holding onto the championship, of course, longer than others, but they're all given equal opportunities. Everyone from Alicia Fox to Brie and Nikki Bella have held the Divas Championship, and the Bella Twins, of course, walked away from WWE, being able to say that each of them held the championship at least once within their respective careers as a singles competitor. But I think that that's the wrong way of doing it. You should have to make your women work harder to earn a Divas Championship. You should have more of them wrestling rather than the same 4 or 5 all the time. And I think that, because of that, you're seeing divas like Eve and Layla getting worn out quicker than they should be. You should easily be able to get anywhere from 9 to 10 years out of someone like Eve and Layla. You take Eve, very well versed in Jitsu and submission style wrestling. You take Layla, who's a very agile wrestler, who can move around the ring probably quicker than some of the divas can. She's got that speed and agility similar to AJ, but I think that what you're doing is you're having them work consistently all the time rather than shaking it up in the Divas division, so to speak. And because of that, you're seeing